Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ice Cold Takes podcast. I am your host, Joey DeMeglio. We have 2 weeks off here on the show. We're back at it. The reason I took off last week is because it really felt like I was beating a dead horse with how the Rangers have been playing. Last episode of the show, I was complaining about Zibanejad and the defense, and we were talking about how the line changes were made, and in those 4 games since the last episode, they really haven't worked out for the Rangers. So I'll break it down today for everybody. First of all, the defensive pairings were absolutely atrocious. So bad. I think it was like the Rangers gave up maybe I think 11 5-on-5 goals in the 4 games since they made those changes. And the Miller and Trouba pairing was out there for 7 goals against out of 11 at 5-on-5. So yeah, I said it. I said it. That pair just doesn't work. It's never worked. It's been like this for years. So why go back to something like that? Now, I remember early in the season, I was saying that the beginning is the time to experiment with lines, and Peter Laviolette has done exactly that. Um, so this isn't a bad thing. It's early in the season. You're not going to lose the Stanley Cup by losing a game in October or November. Just like you can't win the Stanley Cup by winning a game in October or November. As much as some Rangers fans are booking their tickets for the parade now that they beat the San Jose Sharks tonight, it just can't happen. But the Rangers are slumping. I'm not moved by this win tonight by the Rangers. Uh, Maybe this is a sign of things to come if you want to take the optimistic D approach to it. Maybe it is a sign of things to come. Um, but I need to see more. This is a big West Coast road trip. They have games against Seattle, Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary. So yeah, we have to stay up and watch these games now next week, starting Sunday against Seattle. The big concern right now is Filipino. If you want to talk about the San Jose game, that's the biggest thing that needs to be talked about here is that Filipino and Keandre Miller collided. Really, Miller laid a hit on Hedel, and Hedel went to the locker room, then came back out onto the ice, played a shift at the end of the second period, and then didn't come back to play the rest of the game. They ruled him out, and Peter Laviolette said he's being evaluated right now. He's day to day. So you see the head contact, and immediately you begin to get nervous because, of course, Filipino's got a history of concussions, and boy, another one just doesn't look good on the outlook of his career. So I really, really hope that Heedle's okay because the Rangers need him. He's been their best player, hands down. That's not even an ice cold take. That's just fact. He has been their best player all around, up and down the ice. He's doing everything, everything. He was more of a first line center than Zibanejad was. Filipino was playing like Zibanejad used to play. He's all over the ice. In the Winnipeg game, he made a mistake in the third period. He lost control of the puck. He got stripped off the puck. What does he do? He stays in the defensive zone and he cuts off the play. He cuts off the puck to prevent prolonged offensive zone time for the Jets while they had a 1-goal lead. He stops the puck and he transitions. He gets the transition game going so that the Rangers could, try and come back and score to tie the game up. That's something that I look for when I'm watching him play. He's backtracking now. He never used to do that. Hedel was all over the ice, and really the Rangers without him, that third line is not going to be the same. You're going to see a completely different Capo Caco. You're going to see a completely different Will Cooley if he's out of the lineup. So fingers crossed that his health is okay. We went through this last year, and it wasn't good. I just can't say it enough. Filipino needs to be healthy. The Rangers won't go far without him. Um, but back to the game against San Jose, which was tonight. You really can't write it any better. The first goal for the Rangers, of course, after all the criticism he got in that game against Winnipeg, Mika Zibanejad started the scoring. And I guess we could talk about Zibanejad's struggles. A couple weeks ago, I was saying that the noise needed to get louder amongst the fan base, that Zibanejad was struggling and he needed to be better. It has gotten to that point. Maybe a little too far. I don't know. Um, we're at the point now where Zibanejad knows. He knows he needs to be better. He admitted it in yesterday's press interview after practice with the reporters. Um, he said he needed to be better. He knows it. It's in his head. Zibanejad's one of those guys that thinks the game. In my opinion, he is galaxy braining big time. He's overthinking everything. And what I see from him, when he's going, the rest of the team seems to go. He's a leader that way. He's a leader by example. That's why he has an A. That's why at one point in time, I thought he should have been the captain. There was a point in time years ago where I thought he could be a captain because the way he was playing was the way the entire Rangers team was playing. It hasn't been that way. Right now, he's indecisive, hesitant, and I guess like discombobulated all over the place here. And not in a good way, not in the way that Filipino is. And the entire Rangers team looks exactly like that. Aside from the game tonight against the Sharks. But Zibanejad, he was talking to the reporters, and this was actually really telling. I'll read some of the quotes here from Vince's article. It's the hardest thing ever, he said, following Wednesday's practice at the MSG Training Center. I can't explain it. I can always talk. I can always answer your guys' questions. He's talking about the reporters, by the way. To the best of my abilities to explain it, I will never be able to fully explain what it is when you're in this situation. So he's talking about how he's struggling. He turned the puck over 3 times against Winnipeg, the league-leading Winnipeg Jets. 15 wins. They just lost their second game of the season. They're 15-2. Just an unbelievable start to the year for them. 3 turnovers leading directly to goals. And the fact that it was Zibanejad making all those turnovers just turned the heat up amongst the fan base on him. I called him a liability, and I stand by that comment because for the longest time, for the last year, he's been providing the Rangers nothing. No offense, but not giving up anything. Just a net zero. Now, with that game on Tuesday, he's a net negative. 3 turnovers leading directly to goals. Now he's hurting the Rangers. So that's something that they need to figure out. Zibanejad is the only person that's able to figure out how to get out of this slump. It's not going to be on Chris Kreider. It's not going to be on Riley Smith. It's not Artemi Panarin. It's not Alexei Lafreniere. Mika Zibanejad is the only one that Mika Zibanejad could get going. Is the only way that Mika Zibanejad could get going. That's it. That's just how it is. I mean, Laviolette could sit him down and talk with him for a little bit, I guess. But Mika is a galaxy brainer. He's playing 8D chess. He thinks the game too much. And he left the game. He left the game for what he called a breather. He needed a breather. We don't know what happened. I don't know if the wind got knocked out of him or what, but he left the game in the second period, at the very beginning. Let me go through some of these other quotes because this is really telling. He said, you have the mantras, you have the sayings to yourself. Forget about the mistake. Just next action, next game, next shift. It's harder than it sounds, but if I'm going to be like, oh, this is so tough, then it's not going to help me. Zibanejad often puts things in perspective. When you look at these press conferences, these interviews with reporters, the quotes that they pull from here, he always puts things in perspective. And I think a lot of people will look at it and say that he is soft. He's not soft in this way. He's sensitive. There is nothing wrong with being sensitive. If you want to take a page out of Artemi Panarin's playbook, remember how loud fans were, after the Rangers lost to the Devils a couple seasons ago? How much of the blame we were putting on Panarin? And then what did Panarin say? He said, "No matter what I do, it just feels like I'm in the same spot and I can't get it going. I don't know what it is." And then whatever he did in the offseason, he shaved his head. He did something different because he came out a completely different player last season where he almost scored 50 goals. And yeah, I know he only scored like 4 or 5 goals in the playoffs, but they were like all important goals. And he was a completely different player in the playoffs too. If you take a page out of his playbook, yeah, sensitive players can overcome tough times. It may not be the typical way, like, I need to be better. I need to be better. I suck tonight. I suck tonight. I need to be better for the fans. I need to be better for the team. It may not be like that, or you take a benching, or you a healthy scratch, 2 healthy scratches, something like that. People react differently to criticism. And Zibanejad is obviously very, very hard on himself right now. So I appreciate that from him. I'm happy that he understands the first step to to solving the problem is admitting that you have the problem. And Zibanejad, it seems like he did that on Wednesday when he talked to the reporters. This is a big one. This is a big quote here. Is it this one? Yes, this is a big one. This really puts everything into perspective, and I think this is something that a lot of people are going to be saying. Well, he's soft for saying this, but in my opinion, he's right. I think he's right. He's absolutely right. He said, "I can bury myself in negativity and make it even worse, or try to learn from it and take the positives that were in the game. My job is to go out there and play a good game on Thursday. Whether I have a great game the game before or a bad game, it doesn't change. You're expecting me, and I'm expecting myself to play well every night. It's not going to happen every night, even as much as I want it to, but just play hard and have a short memory." He is absolutely putting all of this into perspective. How realistic is it for you to have a good game, an amazing game every single night? Not likely. But you could at the same time, you could nitpick and say, look at Panarin. He's scored in like, what is it, 14 of 15 games this season for the Rangers, 15 of 16 games. He did something similar to that last season. It hasn't affected him. That's why I'm saying Zibanejad should take a page out of Panarin's playbook and change your play style just a little bit. Change your play style. Be more direct. Do something. Stop beating yourself up over something like that. That's why a healthy scratch or benching or demotion, or maybe even just off the power play at this early stage in the season, it's not going to ruin the world. This is a November 14th game. We're at November 14th at the time of this recording for the podcast. November 14th, very early in the season. We're not even a quarter of the way done. If there's ever a time to do it, it's right now. Okay, I understand. Maybe if you healthy scratch him, maybe it sends a wrong message to the locker room, but maybe it puts a fire under Zibanejad's ass. Or you could do what I was saying during the offseason and you give him third line minutes because that's essentially what he's playing like right now. He's playing like a shutdown third liner rather than a top line center. Heedle's more of a top line center right now than Zibanejad is. Kreider too. So you demote Zibanejad just because he's being accountable of himself. He's saying the right things. Just because he's putting things in perspective does not make him immune to criticism. I understand he might be going through a tough time here, but he needs to be better. How do you do that? He's got to figure that out himself. He knows he has to be better. He's got to stop galaxy braining it. This is something he said. Zibanejad is willing himself to put that short memory into practice. I have to find a way to trick myself or whatever it is. Take the red pill, man. Stop taking the blue pill. Just think straight ahead. The way he played tonight was a step in the right direction. Yeah, I know the goal, it was an open net, but Valaquette was talking about it on the post game. He was aggressive on the forecheck, stole the puck back that set up the entire play to get the puck back to him off the Fox shot with the rebound so that he could bury it into the open net. It all started with him. When Zibanejad was going, he was always the finisher. He needs to be the finisher. It doesn't matter who the line mates are. They tried breaking it up, and it didn't work. They tried keeping Kreider and Zibanejad together. Doesn't work. Why? Because Zibanejad is not playing to the way that Zibanejad needs to be playing. That's the big issue. So it was very, very, like, uplifting to see Zibanejad score the first Rangers goal against the Sharks tonight. I'm beyond happy for him, and I hope the next thing is I'm hoping that he could build off of this, because you look at how when he scored that goal, just look at the expression on his face. That was like a Rick Nash style sigh of relief. That was the biggest sigh of relief I've ever seen from a professional athlete in my life. It was, ah, finally, I scored a goal. When he was the Zibanejad I know, that was just like, oh yeah, another day in the park, man. It wasn't a big deal. Like, goal, yeah, I got you. I got you. Power play goal, one time, roof it. Yeah, I got you, man. Beat the goalie. Yes, I got you, man. It hasn't been that way, and it's been a while. But if the Rangers are going to win the cup, that's what needs to happen. And I know a lot of people are probably saying, like, no, that's not realistic. He hasn't played like that in it's been well over a year now since he's played like that. But listen, there's nothing they could do. They are locked into this contract. This is an unmovable contract. Immovable. Cannot be moved. Can't be moved. There's nothing you could do. They have to work with this. And it's far too early to pull the plug and throw in the white towel on this season. Far too early. Like, you look at the Rangers' record. The Rangers are at this point because of their goaltending and Artemi Panarin. It's not because of Zibanejad or Kreider. It's those two guys that I said first. Quick, Shesterkin. That game against Detroit was the most one-sided 4-0 game you'll ever see in your life. That's a game the Rangers absolutely should not have won, but they ended up winning. That's hockey for you, I guess. That's sports for you. Just Zibanejad, if he could get it going, the outlook for the Rangers this season looks a lot better. And it doesn't have to be him playing first line minutes. That's not necessarily like the end all be all of how the Rangers are going to how they might win the cup. If Hedl is healthy, and that's a big if. That's a big if because we don't know anything at this point. We don't know anything. The way they're playing, they are outscoring the Cooley Hedl Kako line is still not giving up a 5-on-5 goal against their outscoring opponents 10-0. That's a top line. And if Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere play like they did last season, which is how they played tonight, you have two good scoring lines right there. Your fourth line is killing it. And your third line, your $15+ million third line, I'd have a lot more confidence in them as the third line than I do as them as the first line. Now, all of a sudden, you're a 4-line team, and you just need to figure out the defensive pairings, and you're good. That's it. That's it, man. There's still room to make upgrades at the trade deadline. There's your optimistic D outlook on the season, man. It's not time to pull a plug. I know the core of Zibanejad and Kreider, the way they've played so far this season, it doesn't look good. The way things ended in the playoffs last season, the way things ended in the playoffs against the Devils. Some may think that this core doesn't have it, but they're locked into it, at least for this year. What are you gonna do? Blow it all up? You can't. If you're gonna blow it all up, you can't do that because you can't get rid of Zibanejad. So the Rangers are stuck with this team whether you like it or not. Chris Drury has his hands tied. The Rangers made their bed when they signed Zibanejad to this extension, so they're gonna live and die by him. So Mika's got to get it going, and I'm going to be praying and rooting for him to do that until the very end. Until the very end. I believe he could do it. I believe he could do it. There's been flashes this season. I've seen them. Tonight was one of them. Montreal game, also another one. You may think I'm a fool for believing that, but even though I called him a liability, I still have hope and faith that Zibanejad could pull himself through this and get back to the goal scoring center that he was. And if he doesn't, there's still a role for him if he could buy into that defensive style of play that he's accustomed to the past full season, the past 80 plus games. So yeah, that's enough of the talk about Zibanejad. Let me get into these line combinations, right? So they played 4 games with the Panarin, Zibanejad, Lafreniere combination, and then the Kreider, Trocheck, Riley Smith combination. Something along those lines. Cooley, Trocheck, and Smith, I believe it was. And then it was Kreider, Hedel, and Kakko. Then they made a slight tweak where they switched Cooley and Kreider, which is what I think it should have been. But again, like I said at the beginning of the episode, I'm glad that Laviolette is experimenting with things at this point in the season. And I do remember I did say, don't overdo it like Gerard Gallant did 2 seasons ago. Don't overdo it. And for the most part, I don't think he has. I was very skeptical of the defensive pairings with reason, and all those defensive pairs, those two of the defensive pairs, Fox and Lindgren, Miller and Trouba, as predicted, terrible, terrible. The one constant, and this is a very good positive, is Zach Jones and Braden Schneider. They have stuck together even after those 4 games. Those 4 games of putrid defense, they were the best pair. They have been the bright spot on the Rangers defense this season. Zach Jones and Braden Schneider, and it's time I'm going to give them some credit here. Jones and Schneider have been the best pair the past 2 weeks. Simple as that. Hands down. Schneider has come such a long way since last season. I remember last year I was saying that he's the weakest link on the Rangers. He was struggling so mightily, and then he just really, really turned it around. He's such a solid defenseman. Zach Jones, you got to hand it to him. This guy has taken beating after beating, not on the ice. I'm not saying on the ice like Ryan Lindgren does. I'm saying like mentally, like off the ice, like personnel, roster, paper decisions, things that are out of his control. He's taken punch after punch, and it hasn't seemed to faze him one bit. He's still the same confident player he was last season, the same confident player he was at the start of this season. He's maintained that level of consistency the entire way. This is a building block for the future for the Rangers. Jones and Schneider, you ride with them. That's good. And I'm happy Laviolette went back with Adam Fox and Keandre Miller. Thank the Lord. Now you just need to figure out what the hell you're doing with Trouba and Lindgren. Because Mancini is down. They sent him down because obviously the Rangers aren't going to scratch Ryan Lindgren for a rookie defenseman. That's just not happening. So Chad Ruedel is back up with the Rangers. I don't know how I feel about Lindgren and Trouba as a pair. They did have a very nice breakout leading to Trocheck's goal, which was the eventual game winner. Beautiful goal, by the way. Oh, unbelievable. Panarin slowed up at the blue line, found a streaking Trocheck darting to the net, and Trocheck, who's been struggling as well, another one of those guys, old reliable, struggling to start this season. He buries it in the top corner, and the Rangers had the lead, the 3-1 lead. Um, that was great. The good play by Truba and Lindgren to start the breakout there. But defensively, I don't know if you might need to give those guys third pair minutes, like reserve them for specific situations, which is like this is the theme. You're gonna be promoting guys based on merit. You're handing the keys to guys like Cooley and Kako and Lafreniere and Jones and Schneider. You're giving them more opportunities to play, and they deserve it. They're outplaying the veterans right now. Doesn't matter if they won tonight. It doesn't matter because the past 2 weeks, it's been fairly consistent for Jones and Schneider. The entire season has been insanely consistent for Cooley, Hedel, and Kako, who are now the only line in the NHL at 5-on-5 to not allow a goal against. No other line There's no other line that has done that anymore. Every line has given up every line that has around the same amount of minutes. Just look up Mike Kelly on Twitter. You'll see the stat that I'm talking about. This is finally another weapon, another 5-on-5 line that the Rangers could use. Either way, I'm looking at this situation with Zibanejad and his struggles as a positive. Optimistic D, baby. You demote him to the third line, and eventually he starts scoring goals again. I don't know, maybe easier matchups, lesser competition. He starts finding the back of the net more, and then you bring him back up and he plays like that the rest of the season. Or you have one of the best shutdown third line centers in the league. That's what I'm looking at it as, because if he can't score goals, he's going to have weaker matchups too. So it should be easier for him to match up against those guys. Because we've seen in the playoffs that he's constantly outmatched when he's paired against other teams' top line centers. So maybe it's time for him to not go up against the top line center. Maybe it's time for him to be a third line center. And then if Cooley, Hedel, and Kako keep playing the way that they've been playing, assuming Hedel is healthy, then there you go. You got a full team right there, man. That's another positive is the fourth line still looks strong. No complaints with Carrick. VZ has scored a couple goals now since he's come back from injury, and Edstrom looks great. He's exactly where he belongs. Rempe should be in the minors. I agree with that decision to keep him down there. Edstrom is great. I don't think Rempe would be providing much because Laviolette doesn't even use him. So again, I'm looking at this as a good situation for the Rangers. You have to take the positives, take the good with the bad. And if you're giving up on the season, man, I don't know what to say. Like we've seen this happen with the Rangers before. We saw it last season. We saw it the season before that where they went through slump and they turned it on at the right time, figured their shit out, and that's it. The rest was history. I think the Rangers are capable of doing that as long as the goaltender is back there. They just can't be over reliant on the goaltending. And I don't think they had to do that tonight until the very end. Maybe like after the 10-minute mark of the third period, things started to get a little dicey. I thought the Rangers controlled the first half of the third period pretty well. It sounded like the Rangers picked up their game after the Zibanejad goal in the second period. And I say sounded like because for whatever reason, the VPN wasn't working on ESPN Plus for me, and I couldn't get the game on the TV. So I had to listen to the game. Good old Kenny and Dave on the radio. But let me close it out here with the Ice Cold Take segment. Everybody at home, remember, the Ice Cold Take is an accurate statement backed by facts and observations that is solid in nature, similar to a block of ice, i.e., a spot-on claim. All right. So, The New York Rangers, the problem with the Rangers right now is that aside from Panarin, the guys they are paying to be reliable have been unreliable. And I'm talking about Zibanejad, Kreider, Trocheck, Fox, Lindgren, Miller, Truba. I'm including the defensemen in there. While the unreliable players in the past, like Lafreniere, Hedel, Kako, the players on the bottom six, have been the most reliable. Of the 9 games the Rangers have won so far, I think there's only been 1, maybe 2 games you can point to and say, "Oh, Zibanejad or Kreider won that game themselves." The rest of the victories have been from Panarin, that Hedel line, or the goalie, whether that be Quick or Shesterkin. This is still a Stanley Cup contender on paper, but as long as they're playing like this, they are barely a playoff team. That's what it is. They need to get their reliable players to play the way that they're paid to be playing. Kreider has been invisible. Trocheck has been invisible. Zibanejad has been awful. Panarin has been the one constant, consistent player, and Lafreniere in the top 6. Those guys, Kreider, Trocheck, and Zibanejad, have got to get it going. And I'm confident that they could do that based on this game against the San Jose Sharks. I know it's a bottom feeding team in the league, but if you're going to build off of something, you're going to do it off of this game. You're going to take it with you into the West Coast road trip. And this is where the snowball starts to take place. The snowball in a good way. The Rangers are going to go as far as their reliable players are going to take them. These guys, these younger players, it's a solid foundation to build around. The guys that are supposed to be here, that are supposed to be the core, have to step it up. They have to play the way they're supposed to play. It's unbelievable how we've gone from last season, the bottom 6 being a no-show, to this season, the top 6 being the no-show. Crazy how that works. A good team is one that comes together all at the same time and makes it all happen. It's not finger pointing at this guy or this guy, as much as I did that this episode. All the players have to come together as one and figure it out. This is how they're going to win the Stanley Cup. That's the way that they have to do it. You look at other teams in the past, the Florida Panthers, and you give credit to the Edmonton Oilers after being down 3-0. Did they panic? Go out of control? No, man. They bought in together and they fought their way back to make it to a game 7. Ultimately, they didn't come out on top, but the team they got there with is a team they finished with. They lost together. This is what the Rangers need to do. Everybody has to build off of this game against the Sharks and move forward with it. Not just Zibanejad, not just Trocheck, who had a goal in this game as well. Everybody. Everybody. It's possible. Believe it. Let's go, Rangers. Ice Cold takes out, Joey D out. I'll see you guys next week for another episode. Bye.